This edition of The Accidental Author features a 6-part multimedia series covering the nuts and bolts and heart and soul of authoring a novel. These 7-minute segments are taken from an hour-long one-on-one interview originally broadcast on WESU-fm in Connecticut.
The Business Buzz. Live with Jeffrey Sherman.
Whoa! What's going on here?
From WESU 88.1 FM, Middletown.
I continue to be much more concerned with the prospect of a nuclear weapon going off in Manhattan.
Mr. President, Bill Hickok's already on it.
Read The Hammer of God, the second in the Wild Bill Hickok trilogy from author Tom Avitabile. Available in ebooks and paperback at Amazon.com and Barnes & Noble. The Hammer of God. It's only fiction till it happens.
And we have a special guest on the Business Buzz today. We have Tom Avitabile, a leading author, fictional author. Tom Avitabile, author now of 4 books. We're going to talk about we're going to get to your recent book, but I find it quite an accomplishment, and they're all really kind of must reads. They're just amazingly interesting. I think what I like about it also, it kind of fits today's world as well. It's got, the suspense, it's got great character development, but it also has, a real good storyline that's kind of based in today's, real world event. So it's got it all. And one of the things, and we're going to talk about all your books, and including obviously your newest one, your newest release, which is The Devil's Quota. And to me, I'm perplexed because it's such excellent books. They'd make fantastic movies, Tom. You haven't given up on that, have you?
Well, there's not much you can do about it except, find somebody who knows somebody who's a star and just bug them until they call the cops. That's all you can really do. The books have received a lot of attention. Anybody who knows the Hollywood game knows what development is. We've had a couple of development deals, and they've been just, the kind of things you buy a lottery ticket and you dream at night. But in the end of the day, there are other people in the middle of that dream, and a lot of those people bring with them, more baggage of what they want to do in your dream. And sometimes your dream just makes a left, and you get a lot of money, but they don't make a film out of it. But that happens enough times, and you're going to the piggy bank a few times. That's nice.
So, Tom, let's walk back a little bit because I think this is fascinating. You have a very successful career as an advertising executive in Manhattan. When did you and how did you think about, now I want to be an author? How'd you get to that point? How'd you find the energy, and how'd you find the inspiration?
Well, I'm the last guy on the planet that would ever be an author. I was actually categorized in high school as functionally illiterate. Okay? I was a Mensa student. I had straight A's. I got scholarships up the wazoo. But I was functionally illiterate because all I ever read was engineering books. I had no idea of the breadth and scope of literature.
Well, certainly you would never know that by reading your books now. I mean, and I hate to interject, but how'd you go from being functionally, I guess advertising must have helped you, right?
Advertising is definitely where you want to be functionally illiterate.
No, I mean getting out of being functionally illiterate.
But what happened is it actually is a strange path. I always loved telling stories. I was that guy that when somebody said, tell the joke, you tell it so much better. And one of the reasons why people always asked me to tell a joke was I'd include all the ancillary things, all the parentheticals. I'd create a story. I'd create a space in which I told a story, and people just enjoyed it more. Later, I learned that that's a bit of being a raconteur. And then that kind of evolved into, I have this idea. So my first entry was screenplays, and I started writing screenplays, which are not literary documents. They're schematics for making a movie. And then one day I had this great screenplay, and Tom Cruise's company loved it, and they wanted to use it for Mission Impossible 3, and I was all excited. And I had an agent at ICM who was at William Morris previously, and he sent it into the Cruise company, Cruise Wagner, and they held it for a couple of days. And when we called them to see what they thought, they sent it back, and they said, you'll know tomorrow. And the next day we found out that they loved it because it had a strong female character, and at the present time his wife and he were kind of on the outs, and all little children that worked for them wanted them to remain working together, and they thought the script might, with a strong female character and a strong male character, bring them together. But that didn't work because the next day they got divorced. So I was in Hawaii. This is not a sad story. I was in Hawaii with some very dear friends celebrating birthdays, and I told my tale of, Tom Cruise, blah, blah, blah. They passed on it. And a guy named Steve said, hey, why don't you write it as a book? I went, ding. Never thought of that. Next day, I'm sitting in my friend Peter's house, and he had a beautiful house overlooking the Pacific, and I dumped the screenplay into Word, and all of a sudden a whale breached the Pacific and just kind of got up and spun, and I went, that's a good sign.
That's a good sign. Doesn't happen to me recently.
but then something happened, a moment of epiphany. And if there's any wannabe writers out there or writers out there, maybe you understand this moment.
And actually, by the way, if there are any aspiring writers or current authors that would like to talk to Tom, a very successful author in his own right, and you have some really great selling books. We'll talk about all the 3 you have now on Amazon and other outlets. But if you'd like to talk to Tom and ask him some questions, pick his brains, how did he become successful doing something that he previously never did before, give us a call. Or if you're a successful author out there that would like to kind of just join the conversation and kind of, talk with Tom about your journeys, that would also be really interesting, I'm sure, for both me and our listeners out there. You can also tweet us at JS Business Buzz. So you had a great kind of epiphany.
Wait. Also, if you're a movie producer with a lot of money, you can call too.
That'll work too, yes. So actually, Oliver Stone's daughter goes to Wesleyan.
Really?
So you never know. He could be, and I've had him on the show.
Can we put the speaker out the window right now?
We'll try our best.
Next time on The Accidental Author.
So the greatest engineering you can do is the engineering of the human dynamic. So I look at it that way. I look at the cause and effect, the stimulus response, the up and down and right and left of the human condition, because that's always in play. I think if there's a fault to be had with techno thrillers, which was my genre before this new book, it's that maybe they were a little too technical and they're really much into like the Mego phase for a lot of people who are essentially humanists. But if you can bring in a human backdrop, if you can make the characters have the daily challenges that we all have, like you can save the world, but you still got to take the garbage out.
That's next time on The Accidental Author.